apparently. Hopefully I pressed the right button. So look, I've got welcome to this week's TPP live show. We were in the green room. We're not gonna swear anymore. Srinder's run away for this week because he's run out of 50p's. And my co-host has decided she hasn't got enough 50p's. That's why she's only putting a photo up. But we do have a great guest for you, right? So, Charanjit, you can say hi, but I'm guessing you won't be able to do an intro, right? Because you haven't got enough 50p's.
I can if you like. Yeah, I can do an intro.
Yeah, don't worry. I got this one.
Okay, so I'd like to welcome everyone.
Yeah, go for it.
You got this. Okay, go ahead then. All right. Okay. Yeah. Welcome to this week's property professionals. And today we're talking about tax planning for landlords, whether they should incorporate their businesses or not. And joining us for this discussion today is Jamal Khan, who's a senior tax partner. He's a leading tax expert, chartered tax advisor, and fellow certified chartered accountant. He's got 27 years of experience in helping landlords, high net worth individuals and corporates in how to reduce their tax liabilities. Jamal provides specialist tax planning advice to high net worth individuals, landlords and corporates. He is well reputed in the industry for being very creative and designing out-of-the-box tax strategies for his clients. He's an expert in tax investigations, tax litigation and out-of-court settlements. And he also speaks at large seminars and TV shows and is a specialist panel member at many events. Welcome, Jamal. I'll hand over to you to discuss whether landlords should be incorporating or not.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for inviting and thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure. I don't know how big our audience is today, but I'm hoping there's quite a few people. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear. And, you know, doing 2 years of Zoom presentations, I've got a psychic ability. I can guess what the next question you're going to ask me.
Right. I'm not going to ask that question.
Are you sure?
No, I'm not going to ask that question.
So obviously you've developed these psychic abilities as well, right?
No, because the screen froze for a second. So I thought I'd check if you guys can hear me. I have the notorious Virgin Media in my area, so I had the Virgin Media connection. It should be working perfectly fine for a moment, and then suddenly disappears. And then I'm talking for a while, but nobody can understand. Nobody can hear me. Right. Anyway.
What do they call it? Other internet companies also screw up, not just Virgin, right?
So no, Virgin Media is notorious, and unfortunately, I've got a picture with Richard Branson because I met with him at his island, and people say, "Well, why didn't you talk to Richard Branson and tell him to fix it?"
You should have said, "Mate, your internet's rubbish. Can you fix it?" And he says, "Well, what do I know? I'm on my island."
Right. Okay. So let's talk about the main topic for today. I don't know how many kind of landlords we have in this group, but it's something that I am actively training at the moment. I'm actually training accountants, lawyers, and IFAs on incorporation. So I have a weekly call. I have a weekly training session. Zoom webinar on Tuesdays, where I train a number of about 25 to 30 different accountants each week, and lawyers and IFAs. And what does incorporation mean? What's involved in the process? What are the tax implications? What is inheritance tax, and what do we do? So I'll go through the same kind of slides, and hopefully people here. Today I've spoken to four different people about incorporation, coming from different accountants and solicitors and lawyers, etc. These are all referrals. People are looking to one person had 5 properties. They wanted to transfer into limited company. One person had 24 properties. One person had about 12 properties. But this is a hot topic at the moment, and for some reason, it's a lot of people think that this is the only solution. This is the magic pill, right? You do it, and it will solve all your problems. But when you think about it, it's not. It's not the magic pill. And if you take the wrong step, it can bite you for your next 5 generations it will bite, right? So it cannot be undone. So you just have to be very careful. I'll just put up, if you allow me to share my screen, please.
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask that. You were just trying to work around it, right? Yeah, go for it.
Right, okay. Right, okay, so this is a little bit about us in terms of who we are. We mainly do tax planning, complex tax planning. We do some tax investigation work, dispute resolutions, but I'll focus on the tax planning side today. Yeah, once again, this is about us, since that's our website, and meet the team. We're tax barristers, tax advisors, and ex-HMRC tax inspectors. So we focus on kind of tax planning and tax investigations, some forensics work, some R&D tax credits. But for this purposes, for the purpose of this session here, we're going to talk about a little bit about capital gains tax, inheritance tax, corporate tax planning, partnership, LLPs, corporate restructuring, and HMRC clearances. So I'll go through some of those in a while. So first of all, when we say landlord, the first thing that you should come think about is inheritance tax. And at the moment, there are more Asian families gathering wealth here in this country than any other kind of any other race. And we are gathering wealth through properties, but that carries a cost with it of 40% inheritance tax. So if you are, if you've got a couple of properties, what you simply need to do is get the market value of the property less the mortgage and multiply by 40%, and that's what you will need to pay to HMRC at death, or your children will need to pay. So you need to avoid that. I mean, I had a consultation with somebody this morning, actually, around 11 o'clock, and 2.8 million of properties, about £3 million of properties in his own name, 3.3 million pounds of properties in his company's name, plus his main residence. So and I said, well, do you know how much inheritance tax you will need to pay? He said, no. I did a basic calculation for him, and it worked out about £2.8 million of inheritance tax. He said, well, we don't have that kind of money. My children, where are my children going to get that kind of money from if I die? I said, well, exactly. This is the thing, that in this country, you've got to be very careful when you accumulate wealth. You've got to plan. You've got to do tax planning, because the wealth will be taken by HMRC. I do a lot of probate cases, unfortunately, and I see families where, a lot of Asian families, where parents have passed away, mum, dad passed away, and the children are having to do the probate, and they need to pay hundreds, thousands, millions in tax. They don't have that money. They need to then start selling the properties and to pay the inheritance tax. What the problem here is that most of us are here first, second generation, third generation. People don't fully understand that once you accumulate wealth, you have to pay inheritance tax on it. And unless you do tax planning, some people would say to me, for example, Jamal, I have sorted out my inheritance tax planning. I said, well, that's great, well done. How did you do it? He said, I've got a will. Okay, you've got a will, well done. That's fantastic. What does the will say? He says, I leave everything to my wife when I die. I said, that's not tax planning. That's not tax. That's really horrible tax planning. Saying there's no tax to pay when you die, but what happens when your wife dies? And he says, oh, I haven't thought about that yet. And that's where the real problem starts, when the wife dies. So you've got to be very careful. So this is kind of a very important lesson that I see every day, but a lot of people don't understand this. Right. So I'll talk about incorporation. So when incorporation is essentially transferring properties into a limited company, and if you I said I get a lot of inquiries about incorporation, mostly from accountants and lawyers, quite a few from IFAs as well. somebody has a number of properties, they've got a mortgage on it, because of the new rules with the Section 24 on the mortgage, you can't get full tax relief on the mortgage interest, and hence your cost, the tax cost that you have to pay, the tax bill that you have to pay every year, is going through the roof. So this is kind of the typical scenario. 3 people I spoke with today all had the same problem. So the tax bill is going through the roof. They now want to transfer their property portfolio into a limited company where they got full tax relief, and so on and so forth. However, to get into a limited company, to get the properties into a limited company, there are 2 main problems, 2 main hurdles for you. One is the capital gains tax, and one is the stamp duty. So you've got to pay capital gains tax and stamp duty on the transfer into a limited company, even if you own that limited company. There is a way to get around these 2 taxes, but if it's a simple, it's in black and white. If you don't qualify, that's it, simple. You don't get that relief. So to avoid capital gains tax, you can get exemption from capital gains tax if your property portfolio can be classed as a business. Now, what's the definition of a business? Definition of a business according to HMRC is that if you're spending at least 20 hours a week, provable, okay, verifiable, on your property portfolio, looking after managing your property portfolio, then this is a business. In that case, when you transfer it into a limited company, there's no capital gains tax to pay. Okay, just kind of expand on that a little bit. There would be people that would come to me with 3 properties or 4 properties. They would transfer in their property portfolio into a limited company, or 2 properties. I would say to them, I don't think you qualify. They'll say, oh no, Jamal, I think I can somehow make up how I do 20 hours a week. I say, well, no, don't try to somehow make up. If you don't qualify, you don't qualify. You got HMRC are going to investigate, can possibly investigate this. And if you have transferred your properties into a limited company and you cannot justify 20 hours a week, they're going to charge you capital gains tax and penalties. So don't take that risk unless you can really, really be certain that you are spending those 20 hours a week on looking after your property portfolio. So, for example, I have one client who has 3 HMOs, and he said, Jamal, most of my week goes in those 3 HMOs. And that's fine, but otherwise we would want to see at least a couple of properties before we start looking at incorporation. The next one is stamp duty. How do you get around stamp duty? Stamp duty is, by the way, charged at the normal rate plus 3%. Limited companies pay a lot higher. So if you're not exempted from stamp duty, then your cost will be quite high. So if you transfer properties into limited companies just like that, you pay stamp duty. But if you want to avoid stamp duty, you have to form a partnership. Partnership would be set up between you, maybe your wife or your other business partner, whoever it is, your children, and that partnership has to be run as a business for a couple of years, at least 2 years, and then you incorporate. Okay, so when you incorporate at that point, there is no capital gains tax to pay because you would be doing at least 20 hours a week. There's no stamp duty because you're incorporating from a partnership. Okay, so this is kind of the main mechanism of how this works. There's a lot of complex process behind it, but this is kind of to get into people's kind of main understanding is that these are the main hurdles I need to cross before I transfer properties into a limited company. Okay. Benefits of incorporation. So once you do transfer properties into a limited company, there's no Section 24 restrictions, so you get full tax relief on your mortgage interest. There's no capital gains tax on incorporation of the partnership. There's no stamp duty. But a bigger benefit that's not mentioned on these slides is that once you incorporate the company, once you do transfer the properties into a limited company, the company buys the properties from you at market value at the date of transfer. And if the company then decides to sell the properties afterwards, or if you decide to sell the properties in the company afterwards, straight afterwards, then there's no capital gains tax at all. So I'll kind of give you an example of this. Is I say, for example, I bought a property for £100,000 and it's worth £1 million today. Okay. And if I sell that property, I would make a capital gain of £900,000. I'd be paying capital gains tax at 28% on that. So that roughly works out about £300,000. If I incorporate tomorrow, if I transfer the property into limited company and claim all the exemptions and the reliefs and everything, and on Monday I sell the property to a potential buyer for that same £1 million, there's no capital gains tax to pay. So I have just saved myself £300,000 of capital gains tax. Okay, so that's quite, so, and I do work with quite a lot of serial landlords on these incorporations and how we maximize their tax savings. Right, okay. Go back to incorporation. So this is something that I always tell people that it's not a magic pill. Please don't incorporate if you don't have to. And be aware of the risks. So first of all, the government, there's no guarantee the government won't apply Section 24 rules for the limited companies as well. You can't, if the government changes the rules tomorrow, or however they want to increase them, and once you're stuck into a limited company, once you put your properties into a limited company and you're stuck there, you cannot come out. You cannot bring your properties back out of the limited company. So they're stuck in there forever for your however many generations. HMRC can challenge the stamp duty relief that you claimed. There's some anti-avoidance provisions. They can challenge you for the 20 hours a week thing. So just be very careful. Also, if you do transfer, if you do incorporate, I mean, and there will be also mortgage transfer costs, because the current mortgage will need to be redeemed and you will need to take a new mortgage in the limited company. So we just did this for one of our clients and he paid just over £120,000 in mortgage transfer costs. He's got quite a large portfolio. £120,000 he paid. Okay? Just be wary of that. Last but not least is inheritance tax. When you incorporate, your inheritance tax situation gets really bad. So you cannot you will still own the company. So what would happen is, if you still own the company, you would, and you die, that would form part of your estate. So if the property goes up in value, your estate goes up in value, the inheritance tax will be higher. Some people say, Jamal, so why don't we just gift the shares in the company to the children? You can't do that, because when you gift the shares in the company to the children, that triggers a capital gains tax that's payable immediately. So you just need to be, and once the property is in a limited company, it's stuck in there. It cannot come out. So if you do pass away and the children have to pay your inheritance tax, the children will have to sell the properties in the limited company. That limited company will pay capital corporation tax. You have to take the dividends out, and then pay dividend tax on those dividends, and then pay the inheritance tax. So you will effectively lose 70% of the value of the property before you can pay the inheritance tax. This can be quite costly, and I'm dealing with quite large probates at the moment on this matter, and they are cursing themselves for having incorporated, or their parents for having incorporated, essentially. Okay. Another structure that we propose, as opposed to incorporation, is an LLP structure, limited liability partnerships, or partnership structure, which people can use to avoid capital gains tax, inheritance tax, and mitigate their income tax. Essentially, and this is kind of a lot more flexible than a limited company. And I've done hundreds of these, hundreds and hundreds of these, and I've saved, I would say, around about 700 to 800 million pounds of tax for my clients over the years. Sorry.
Sorry, Jamal, can I ask a question? Sorry to just go back a little bit. My connection dropped. So going back to the previous structure you were saying, so you can't issue like shares, in a company to your children and transfer the company that way?
No, you can do that, but you can't just gift shares to the children. You can do something called growth shares, and we
right.
talk about that, but growth shares are a possibility.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Growth shares are when you've incorporated, and so for example, you can set up a new company, in which case, if it's a new business, you haven't bought any properties until today, and then you suddenly you start starting a new business completely from scratch. The parents have shares in the company, and you involve the children, get the children as shareholders. What we do is we freeze the parents' shares and we give growth shares to children. So any growth in value in the properties goes to the children. If you've already got a portfolio of, say, 5 million or 3 million or 20 million or 100 million, doesn't matter, and you transfer that into a limited company, so that value will still sit in your estate. But what you can do is you can issue growth shares from today's date. Any increase in value from today's date in that portfolio will go to the children, but the previous value will go to the parents. That cannot be shifted to the children. So that's why when you incorporate, you've got to consider all of these matters. A lot of people kind of don't fully understand what the implications are, but because growth shares might be relevant, might not be relevant, depending on how big the estate is.
Okay, great. Understand that. Great. Thanks for that.
Okay. I'll come back to this. So what we do with this LLP structure is we set up a partnership LLP between husband and wife and children over 16. We transfer the properties into the partnership, and then we gift the equity in the property to the children in a way that doesn't trigger a capital gains tax. So, and when we do trigger that, when we do make that gift, that triggers a 7-year gift clock for inheritance tax purposes. The parents pass away within 7 years. Then you've got then there's an inheritance tax to pay, but it's on a reducing basis. So if the parents pass away within the first 3 years, there's inheritance tax at 40%. If they pass away within 3 to 4 years, it's 30%, and it keeps on going down every year until you reach 7 years, and then it's 0. There's quite a lot of flexibility. You can divide the income between the children and the parents, so the overall tax rate becomes low. The properties are protected, they're ring-fenced. So in case there's a divorce or anything within the family, within the children, nobody can touch these properties. So there's quite a lot of benefits from this that we've been using, as well as incorporation. So we've got a lot of structures that we use. Every case is different. Okay, so this is me. Why do tax planning? Mitigate the risk, mitigate tax, or do nothing. So you can either do nothing about it. I have a lot of clients, for example, typical trait within the Asian community is that you tell them you've got to do tax planning, they'll say, yes, it's very important, but because it's not urgent, nothing is burning, house is not on fire, they will think about it. Then the years go by and then they haven't done anything, and then they come back to you, somebody died within the family and they want you to do it immediately and backdate it. You can't backdate things. So do something very quickly. I deal with a lot of kind of different types of clients who are landlords, professionals, and some of them don't care until it hits them, and sometimes the children would take it very seriously. The children would go to their parents and say, "Dad, Mum, if you're not going to do anything, just we don't want anything because we need to do something. Otherwise, we'll have to pay a lot of money to the taxman once you do pass." So it's very, very important that this is taken seriously. Okay, so I will not go through the tax investigation slides. We did some R&D, some dues. Yeah, by the way, so this could be relevant to you. So if you bought a property recently and the property, you paid the 3% additional stamp duty, residential property, I mean, and if the property was derelict, if it was not uninhabitable, then there is a case law on this matter where we can get the 3% stamp duty back for you from HMRC. And we've done a lot of cases. We've claimed a lot of stamp duty back from HMRC. We did one recently. We claimed about £70,000 of stamp duty back from HMRC. Right, and this is me, a lot younger than what I am today. So it's just my email is here, and my telephone number is here. My telephone number is 07. It should be 07973. Anyway, that's my telephone number. And 07973444717, and that's my office number and my email. And if you want to just get in contact, do get in contact. Okay, any questions?
Very interesting, Jamal. I've got loads of questions actually, but I'm going to give Charanjit a chance. I have to be. I'm finding my 50p, so I'm putting those in.
Thanks,
only 50p's.
Hey?
No, you're still counting your 50p's.
Well, no, I'm putting them in the meter. You know, cost of living. I've got to put more in now. You know, it used to work okay before, and now with the cost of living, I've got to put more and more in. And Surinder's not here today, so I can't use his £50 notes. He usually puts £50 notes in. But go on, Charanjit, you've got a question.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Great. That was really interesting, Jamal. Thanks very much. So I was wondering whether you, what your thoughts were, or whether you've been advised on like family trust structures.
Family trust structures. Trusts were very good at one stage, but they're not good anymore. The reason is that the government changed the rules back in 2004. I don't know, you guys must remember Gordon Brown. When he was Chancellor, he changed the rules, and now the trusts are almost prohibitive. But not many people know that. Unfortunately, there's still people doing trusts. So the way the rules work now is if you're transferring properties into a trust which are worth more than 325,000, then you have to pay inheritance tax at 20%, half of the inheritance tax, immediately. Well, so essentially you're not dead, but you're paying half of the inheritance tax now, and you pay the rest if you die within 7 years. So that's the first hurdle, which is why not many people are going into trusts anymore. Second one is that trusts pay tax at annual income tax at 45%. Managing that is not easy.
Is that a flat rate of 45%? Like, there's no allowances at all?
No, flat rate.
Just a flat rate.
It's really horrible. You've got to pay in 2 every year, like in January and in July, and you're paying for next year as well. So you haven't even earned the money you have to pay. We've got a couple of clients that came to me 8-9 years ago and said, Jamal, we want to set up a trust. I said, don't do it. Jamal, we want to set up a trust. We have to do it. Somebody sold me a trust. I've paid £5,000 for it already. I said, don't do it, because your property portfolio is worth a lot more. Anyway, he set up a trust, paid some inheritance tax, and then when it came to paying income tax every year, he couldn't manage. So anyway, now the rules are that every 10 years you have to pay a 10-year anniversary charge on trusts, which is 6% on the value of the properties within the trust. So now his 10-year anniversary charge is coming up. That guy is panicking. How am I going to pay the 6%? Where am I going to get the money from?
Okay.
Trusts are quite primitive now. I mean, we do trusts very rarely, but those are like Wales or Scotland, where somebody might have a very large portfolio of 20 properties, but the total value of the properties is £1,000. So it's it doesn't make a difference, but between husband and wife, or maybe between husband and wife for £500,000, because in Scotland properties, you can buy a property very cheap.
So what would you advise someone who's just got like maybe one or two properties, you know, but in London, so they're quite high value? Would you still advise, you know, the partnership structure?
LLP structure is quite good. But I mean, it depends. I would have to talk to that person. I would have to assess their situation. There's a lot of things that help. It's not a, you can't, there's no one simple for everyone.
Tanya, I'm going to mute you for a bit because there's some background noise. There's some, I can guess the noisy rogues there. I can recognize his voice actually. But feel free to unmute and come back when you've got a question. Jamal, can you put your slide back on with your contact details? And I've got a question for you. I was looking at your website earlier. Apparently you guys do YouTube taxation and YouTube inheritance tax and investigations. Thank you for that. Yeah, so my question is, what's that about? YouTube taxation and investigations and all of this other stuff?
YouTube, we have, I mean, I do quite a lot of videos. So I have about 270 videos on different tax planning and investigation and tax tribunal cases and complex tax planning, offshore tax planning, restructuring. So restructuring, reconstructions. So I do quite a lot of, I do speak, I get invited to train, to speak to solicitors and accountants and IFAs and different professionals. And so I am quite well known in the community.
So we're in the presence of a YouTube superstar, right?
Yeah. Not a superstar, no, don't try to compare. I don't have 1 million followers, no, but we just do a couple of videos here and there, and yeah, the accountancy profession and the lawyer's profession, yeah, we are quite known, but no, not like one of those teenagers.
Listen, I'm you know, I've got 3 YouTube channels, so I'm not exactly a teenager, but thank you for the compliment. I'll take that. But
you probably have a lot more following than us.
No, I don't. It's rubbish. Don't worry about that. That's. But I was looking on your website, and it said something about YouTube tax investigations and YouTube inheritance tax. That really got me interested. So
no, it's just the video on YouTube.
Yeah.
Which is about tax investigations, and the video on YouTube, which is about inheritance tax.
Oh, okay. All right, great. And why haven't you put your YouTube channel on there? Come on.
My YouTube channel?
Yeah.
I'll give it a try. 1 second.
No, you should put it on your details. Come on, man. This is.
Sorry. I don't know. You just Google Jamal Khan or Churchill Tax Advisors. Just Google my name and you'll find me. Or actually, there's if you go to our website, there is a page which says videos, and that will connect.
You basically don't know what's going on. You've got someone else to do it, and they've filmed it and put it on for you, right?
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, come on, man. All right. Look, so now that's a really interesting presentation. Thank you very much. Now, a couple of points I'm going to ask you. If you're undoing all this tax that Rishi thought he was going to collect, how's he going to balance, or how's his new mate, what's his name, Jeremy Hunt, going to manage the budget now?
Well, no, this is not something new. I don't like to, because this is something that we've been doing for years, and HMRC have allowed the government. This is not risky. Whatever the government has allowed, this is not risky, unless the government comes back and says we're not going to be allowing incorporation relief anymore. That's not even on the cards.
Okay.
Yeah. So, or LLP tax planning, or that these are kind of, as I said, with LLP tax planning, you have to be alive for 7 years once you've made the gift. So there's no kind of immediate benefit to anybody. But it's, in the long run, it's very beneficial. I mean, I have dealt with cases. There's very, very kind of emotional people who have lost their loved ones, and now they're selling their family home to pay the tax. I've got one of my friends passed away on 2nd of January, and he just had a heart attack in the morning. Now, he was very close to me, but he never told me that he's just bought a massive house, but he never had any other money to pay his inheritance tax.
Yeah.
And plus he had a lot of tax problems. But anyway, the point is that now HMRC are after his widow.
Yeah.
To collect the tax. He doesn't have any to give. So I see a lot of problems. Unfortunately, our Asian community is just something that people don't like to talk about. It's a taboo topic.
Yeah, I mean, we briefly had a conversation on this. I'm going to go into it for a couple of minutes. So it's an interesting comment because I'm guessing from an Asian perspective, because they don't have inheritance tax in India and Pakistan, it's not in their psyche. Yeah. Is that one thing to think about? Yeah,
exactly. They just feel that when somebody dies, we're not going to tell anybody. It doesn't work like that. There is probate. There are things here that has to be done there.
Yeah, but definitely in India, and I'm guessing it's very similar for Pakistan, whichever element they're from, whichever country their parents are from, because a lot of previous generation who came here haven't had to deal with those affairs for their parents. But also, there isn't that sort of scenario there. In India, they've just about introduced income tax at 5% or something, or sales tax.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not just in Pakistan, it's Bangladesh as well. We've got a lot of wealthy clients from Sri Lanka, Chinese clients. They also don't understand inheritance tax. Who are really good at this, who contact me really early in their lifetime, is the Jewish clients who've been here, and they are really good at it. I mean, they come to me very early, and they say, Jamal, we need to sort this out, and I do sort it out for them. I just because I do it every day. I can say very with confidence that Jewish clients here are very kind of out this.
Yeah, no, I found that discussion really interesting because it made me think, why is that the case? One of the things. Because look, a lot of our habits, a lot of our ideas, a lot of our thinking and understanding comes from our parents and their parents in our daily lives. Yeah.
Can I just say something about, regarding sort of the Jewish community? I think because they're a generation before us, aren't they? So they're a generation ahead. So maybe they're just a bit more clued up, whereas with the Asians,
we are. This is really bad, and I see it. You see, you guys, you don't see it every day happening every day. I see it because I deal with probate and I deal with complex kind of situations, and it's happening so much. It's just gonna. People just don't realize. And Jewish people have been there for generations, multi-generations, but they're aware. Because the normal English people don't have a lot of wealth, right?
Come on, man, that's a bit.
No, the wealth is sitting, because I see it, the wealth is sitting in the Jewish community and the Asian community.
But you see, for the Asian community, it's quite new wealth. So that I think they're still educating, we're still educating ourselves on all of these things, So, perhaps people are just not thinking that far ahead. I mean, but, our generation hopefully are.
Well, we've got people like Jamal helping us, right? Jamal.
That's right. I've been about this for so many years now. And the same thing I've been saying, we've got to educate. But I see, I had, I'll give you a story about a Bengali uncle that I met. He was about 78 years old. Came into my office, recommended by another accountant. I mean, when you look at him, you think that he's literally living on benefits. Property portfolio of £8 million or something, 7-8 million pounds. He bought properties in central London, Whitechapel, years ago. Anyway, so he's worth a lot of money, this guy. And I said to him, why haven't you done any tax planning? Why don't you pass it on to your children? And now we do this. He said, no, my son is only 52 years old. He's not mature enough. I can't trust him when he's 52. I said, okay.
Fantastic. That's great, isn't it? I mean, you know, that I think we could say for all our parents, whatever age we are, that we're never going to be mature.
He's only 52. So it's and I said, well, you might well write a check to HMRC for £3.8 million, and because just to avoid the hassle for your children when you pass away. So it's, that was a couple of years ago. I don't know if he's still alive or not. But the point is that this is from the mindset.
Yeah. And mindset's a great idea. Any tips or hints or ways of approaching this subject for the children with their parents? Because it's difficult for them to ask the question because they're dealing with a subject that what they're ending up saying to their parents is what happens when you die, and that's not a nice subject to talk about, right?
No, nobody talks about it. I sit in meetings with parents and children.
Yeah.
Go right as soon as we start talking about it, and I've had cases where I've had parents, for example, I had a mother and 2 children come to me come for this tax planning, and then when they went home, when the mother called me to say, this is what I want to say to my son about the but inheritance and this and that, and then the son said, oh, can you tell my mum this? And then I got a bit annoyed. I said, why do you talk to each other on the dinner table? You live in the same house. Explain this to each other. Talk to each other openly. So this is how we are. Anyway, you've got to be open about it. I think this is the thing. I have to go in a few minutes. I have 2 hungry children.
Fantastic. Look, thank you for your time. Appreciate that. Go and feed your kids. Obviously, you're not going to eat your kids, right?
I have to feed them first.
Yeah. Okay, you go and feed them. Go for it. Thank you. Look, right. There you are.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
I thought that was great. Thanks. That's really interesting. And I've seen another. I was speaking to another accountant, and his whole thing is about the communication issue with families. Fantastic. I think I'm going to try and get him on board as well.
Thanks a lot. You take care.
Joel, thank you very much for your time. Go and feed your kids. I thought you'd already gone, mate. Great. Look, fantastic show. Really interesting. We'll see everybody next week, right? I've got to press the stop button now. Man, I've really got a full load today.
Bye.
Okay. All right. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel.